Okay, warm welcome everyone to this first opening webinar of the LIVINT project. LIVINT stands for Creative and Living Cultural Heritage as a resource for the Northern Dimension region. My name is Leena Marsio and I work as a senior advisor here in Finnish heritage agency Museovirasto Museiverket, and I've been the coordinator of the UNESCO 2003 convention for the past 7 years. And today I have here with me the coordinator of the LIVINT project, Elisa.
Hello, and welcome to you all from my part also very harshly. I've been sending out a link and trying to check all the practicalities in beforehand, and we'll return to those shortly.
Okay, we go forward. Did we have the map in the next slide maybe? So as mentioned before to all the participants, please feel free to put yourself on the map. So Elisa not yet changing the slide at this end.
Yes, I think we are, let me see.
But at this point, I want to especially thank all of our partners who have been organizing this webinar with us. We'll go forward soon to see a bit more on who are the partners of this project. So thank you for all of you. We've been doing this as a cooperative exercise among the Northern Dimension region partner countries. But go and put your pin on the map so you can find the link in the chat, and then we can later have a small look. I think, Elisa, we thought that in the end we will have a look, but also here in between of the presentations, you're welcome to go there. Okay.
So we are moving now on. We have a bit tight schedule, so we are hurrying up slightly with how we go on with things. And next, we will now hear about the project. What is LIVINT project about? And Leena, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
I'll do my 7-minute presentation of the project here. If you just
I will
slides.
Change the slides. Yes.
Okay, we here in Finnish Heritage Agency have been busy with sustainable development for the past 3 or 4 years now. And it's a big agenda, Agenda 2030, and it's touching upon all of us. So our special field of work is living heritage, and we have felt a strong need of how to concretize it for ourselves, for the communities, NGOs and institutions we are working with. And we've also felt that there is this need in many of the countries, or actually in all of the countries. So, I mean, hands up who is not here to make a better future for ourselves and for our kids and grandchildren and so on. And with this project, we are looking forward to see how we can do better. It's the Agenda 2030 that forms the backbone to our project, but we will look at it from different angles. In our project, next, coordinated by the Finnish Heritage Agency. So we start in September, it will be finalized in May 23. We have project partners from 10 countries, actually 14 different regions here, with a budget of 254 euros. Our main funder is the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, but we are also co-funded by the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture and also by the Finnish Heritage Agency. Our project is based on shared development needs. I guess it all started off 2 or is it already 3 years ago? 2 years ago in Espoo, many of you were here in Finland, part of the 3-day seminar, and you were also maybe testing our famous tool, the Wheel Chart of Sustainability. So I think that was the starting point for our work. But there are many important international frameworks that makes the basis for our work. So already mentioned Agenda 2030. Then also the Convention for the Safeguarding of ICH under UNESCO, which I'm personally coordinating here in Finland, but also the UNESCO 2005 Convention on the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. Furthermore, some of our countries have ratified the Faro Convention and the Council of Europe, which is really about participation or participatory approach towards cultural heritage. In the project, Elisa, so our partners, here you see the wonderful bunch of people and organizations we are happy to work with in this project. So, and I think all of you are also, most of you are present here today, so warm thank you. We've been planning this project now for a year, and this is now the first opening webinar, but it is the biggest project related to living heritage ever in this part of Europe, and I'm just deeply grateful for our funders and deeply grateful for all our partners to contributing to this and making it possible. But what we need is now you all people. We are not going to do this alone, but we really need participants and welcome participants from all of these countries to learn more and to share your examples. About the concrete results in our project, so what are we actually thinking of doing? So it is about new networks, and that's why we are all here to open up the connections. I think there is tremendous potential on living heritage, on different kind of projects and cooperation among in this region. So also that's one purpose today, to participate in the workshops. We want to provide a platform where all you can get to know each other, to learn about your practices, and even to make cooperation or make new projects. It's about enhanced capacities. So during next year, we're going to organize a series of webinars, seminars, and workshops where we hope many of you will come back and learn more. So today we're just going to do a scratch about what sustainability and living heritage is, but during next year, we're going to go deeper into each of the dimensions. So also new products, projects, and services will be created. So we have small seed money within this project, so around 2 projects for every country. So if you're really eager and you stay on board and go with the process, it's also possible that your project will get some funding from this project. And at the end of it, we're going to create an online platform. So I think we're all going to learn a lot about what living heritage and sustainability is in concrete within this project. And we also want to share the news with the rest of the world. So this is definitely an area where there are a lot of eager learners in each of the country in the world, one could say. In the next slide, I have something about the SDGs. So yes, in this project, we have decided to work on the 4 dimensions of sustainability. So ecological, economic, social, but also we wanted to include cultural sustainability as one of the themes. So all of you who have pre-registered for this webinar, you have signed into one of the workshops. So now we're going to have presentations from each of these 4 themes, and then we're going to go to the workshops and discuss there more to hear about your thoughts, your ideas, your projects, your knowledge already. And also the webinars and workshops next year are going to be built around these 4 themes. But to go very concretely on what the SDGs and what does this sustainability in practice mean to all of us, whether you are working in crafts or in storytelling or with nature-related heritage or whatever it could be, it is touching all of our work in a way or another. In the last slide, I think I have just something concrete. I mean, what does it mean to you particularly? So how can you take part in this process? So you are very, very welcome to join all of the webinars on different themes on sustainability that will be organized next year. We don't have a schedule yet, but we will start creating one right after this first webinar. And you can learn from each other, from
Let's see, it seems now that we are having a bit
interactive
of a
online workshop. Okay. So we really big of sustainability. And then also, oh yes, now it is a bit unstable. And Elisa, you put your thumb up when you hear me. So, and we're also going to use the House-based platform. You can contribute with your own examples to the upcoming platform, and do join the mail list. I mean, when you registered, you can click I want to hear more, so you will get all the invitations what's going to happen next year. So whether you're interested in the ecology or in the economy or inclusion or work with children, you can then participate those that's within your main interest. But I guess this was for now from me, from the presentation. So warm welcome on board. It's truly a happy day to have all of you on board. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Leena. That was excellent 7 minutes run through about the living project, and you were doing it with such expertise that I can only look and learn in a way. But next in line, we would have the research points of view about living heritage and sustainable development. A part of this project is research activities, and we have selected a small, energetic and professional team to carry out research tasks and activities, really looking analytically into how living heritage and sustainable development link, how it has already been done, and what we can learn. The one idea of the research activities is also to inform the planning of the pilot initiatives that are going to be taken into action during this project. But for research point of views, we now have Professor Kristin Kuutma. Kristin, if you have your microphone and camera on, so.
I do have my camera on.
Yes.
And my microphone as well.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to the slide. Yes.
Yes. Here we are, and this is the title of what we are going to talk about in this opening webinar. Really starting from the scratch in a way, like what does it mean, the linkage, or how living heritage and sustainable development are interlinked. Kristin, maybe you would like to say a few words first about how well into this question you already are through all your projects and research initiatives that you've been through.
Well, thank you, Elisa, and good afternoon to everyone on my part as well. So I hail from Estonia, and I'm a professor of cultural research at the University of Tartu, but I'm also the chairholder of the UNESCO Chair on Applied Studies of Intangible Cultural Heritage. And I have been working in the Intangible Heritage Framework already for 2 decades, right when the UNESCO project was started. So the whole idea of what living heritage is, hopefully, is familiar to me, also through my background in cultural anthropology, where I have done studies in folklore, cultural history, and also Scandinavian area studies.
All right.
Right.
There's a lot of knowledge that you have that you can now use as your resource, answering issues regarding the linkage between living heritage and sustainability. As you well know, in the title of the Living Project, it tells creative and living cultural heritage as a resource for the Northern Dimension region. The term resource can be seen here as a bit of a controversial term even. And the first question here for you would be actually, how should we understand cultural heritage as sustainable resources?
Right. Well, my introduction proposes some background reflection on the policy ideals and guidelines articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals and their social effects. Well, the past 2 years added to our social imaginary the aspect of permanent crisis, disorder, a new sense of indeterminacy of cultural economic matters, and the ubiquitous pandemic condition has come to color the conceptual frame of sustainability or resilience or rights in all possible shades. And I would like to introduce the kind of a punctuated ideational analysis to broaden our comprehension of abstract descriptors in order to bring forth veiled assumptions and subtle constraints, because how we talk about things not only defines but also constructs them. And sustainability encompasses inherently issues of inclusion, accessibility, and affordance. And this brings in the category of rights, cultural rights, human rights, and the right for economic activities, that is, an engagement with the economic potential. My own research observes the entangled economic implications and resource command in expressive cultural practices to cut through a number of SDGs, and carrying out a study with multi-sided shifting between networks of people in different settings who partake in a transference of institutional conceptualizations traces their translation, both in literal and metaphoric sense, into functional processes on various scales. And heritage designation turns a cultural expression or condition into a political and socio-economic asset. And relevant policymaking entails a redistribution of power relations and constrains access to resources. And the moment of contention has thus both political and economic implications. And this shifts a spotlight to the tensions related to apprehending culture as property. Cultural property has become a way of describing cultural identities, whereas the heritage imaginary underscores the rift dividing culture as a commodity from culture as a common good. In spite of the fact that cultural governance stakeholders, particularly on national level, often feel discomfort with and articulate an organizational problem with economic activities, it may indicate a conflict with local community interests. And when addressing the realm of cultural heritage, the omnipresent social struggles around ownership and control of provenance and possession take the front stage. Therefore, by identifying relationships of meaning and practice between different domains of social life, one may find ways to reconcile apparently competing claims for recognition and redistribution. And these reflections over culture and rights derives from an acknowledgement of the relativist nature of heritage. It is not a given, but a social construct. And even though claimed in the name of a collective, it is acted out by individuals. We should seek to intertwine collectivist and individualist approaches when explaining human actions in a global system. And human rights culture shapes how the world is apprehended when posing specific modes of agency and particular rules of the game, whereas the sites of meaning related to economics address the availability of resources. I want to highlight the management of heritage resources and the emergent interactions among heritage systems participants. And then let's turn to the next slide. Right, so talking about sustainable development is a very large and often abstract notion. Understanding that the SDGs are complex and always context dependent, I'll address SDGs as a discourse or a debate. One may firstly point to the inherent contradictions, starting with the component of development, when wondering to what extent does this imply growth. The latter sounds particularly paradoxical in the compound concept of economic growth, when expansion is proving gradually detrimental to living conditions and survival. And thus, we should retain a critical standpoint to the objectification of development or cultivating a linear progress. When exploring the encounters between development policy and practice and its beneficiaries, one should be attentive to notice unintended consequences, or in turn, affordances. And the agenda of generating sustainable communities entails an acknowledgement of grassroots ecosystem management, as well as the empowerment through endorsed capacity of change and accountability. Sustainability as a concept poses a semantic conundrum if one contemplates whether it is a restrictive or generative construct, contending that no concept can capture the complexity of actual social processes. Let me take both on board. When we are talking about sustainability, reflections derive from the agenda of imposing limitations with a goal of restricting over-exploitation of resources, be those human, social, economic, or environmental. The pillar areas of sustainability that uphold the responsible goal-setting guidelines. And with an agenda to endorse sensible use of renewable resources, we should ponder further the role of partnerships in the process of harmonizing economic well-being, social inclusion, and environmental protection. A proposal to apply in practice the values and ethical dimensions of sustainability should concur with a call to reconnect and find common ground, which suggests placing the creative role of communities and partnerships in focus. The economic potential related to living heritage bears on the aspect of turnover, on employment, and on meaning with a specific role of knowledge and reputation. Even if expressive practices seemingly pertain to another category with contrasting ethos, the previous or historical means of subsistence, often related to crafts, for example, cannot occur outside of the prevalent revenue relations. Still, notwithstanding that heritage claims and regulation are imbricated in the economic domain and politics, heritage regulators, expert administrators, as well as many scholars regard economic processes with an inferior positioning on their ethical scales. More often than not, heritage-engaged cultural workers appear holding a strongly felt moral principle and demonstrate discomfort towards possible commercial initiatives or practices. But from a broader and complex social perspective, an alternative liberal outlook to the affordability and upscaling of economic activities may eventually concur better with the ideals pronounced in the Sustainable Development Goals. Particularizations of conceptual and economic issues outline the paramount and yet wicked problem of the moral effect of the living heritage designation and the instrumentality of resources. These instances draw attention to the power and disputed politics of representation, where historical experience is defined by imaginaries in the present. It constrains and molds the current dynamics and encounters. The power and the politics of representation and access to resources, or resources at risk due to economic or social transformations, exposit concerns related to cultural and social rights. Understandably, the outlook on culture as property delineates but also generates an aggravating and yet momentous strife over the control of assets, claims of title to ownership. The fundamental constructive and stimulating interest under scrutiny here is an endeavor for sustainable economic development through living heritage encompassing the scope from expressive culture to eco-sensitive agriculture. Problems arise, however, from the prevailing paramount agenda of economic growth and neoliberal ideals of the advancement through entrepreneurial programs that often bring about unintended consequences. Such consequences would be inequality and exclusion, the power of economic elites who may see designated heritage to condition capital accumulation. On the other hand, the heritage framework instigates sentiments and policies of protectionism, nativism, or nationalism. That being said, one cannot but be aware of the opposite when contemplating the possibility of implementing living heritage as a strategy in resistance to stately regulations or centralized authoritarian policy. An extended usage of the term sustainability in the sphere of culture, the field of heritage studies included, invoke complex ethical considerations embedded in shifting sites of empowerment and vulnerability. The issues of ownership and resilience concern, crucially, the option of asserting rights vis-à-vis state authorities and sustaining local livelihoods while negotiating new economic opportunities for the community. Focusing on the question of rights, distinguish between the individual rights to culture when affirming a particular identity and cultural rights as a means of claiming the acknowledgement of a distinct community with legal implications of granting access or expression. Heritage may provide a tool for healing and reconciliation in post-conflict situations in the form of dedicated sites and festivities, while alerting to the abusive control of curating a collective narrative. The aspect of rights violation, or by contrast, enabling moments for indigenous rights in cultural heritage policy, be it representation in the museum setting or the perspectives for community involvement in heritage tourism, is of essence. And yet, a regional demarcation may be contested from the cosmopolitan orientation to heritage and affordability. At the same time, governmentality and human rights entanglements alert heritage studies to rights-based discourses and practices in new forms of culturalized politics under conditions of neoliberalism. In marketized relationships which position cultural heritage as a resource, the enactment of government policy relies upon the self-empowerment and self-organized communities. A reflexive discussion notices here various actors and influential brokers engaged in the participation paradigm, being tacitly guided by acknowledging intersectionality in how gender perspectives relate to social, subsistence, or environmental responsibility, or to systems of ownership. By grounding thus contemplations on the economic and ecological, on the political and historical, we could better understand how sustainability is becoming instrumental. And we get to the last slide. The living heritage configuration generates a new policy of cultural management that brings about conceptual and social change, making important the sharing of experience for inspiration and guidance on the stakeholder level. Sustainable development is simultaneously a key priority, but also a challenge for the future. It appears that we should rethink policies and orders informing the international or national heritage governance more profoundly, particularly within the guidelines spelled out in the SDGs, and engage more directly with economic configurations and affordances on offer. By economic affordances, I mean the potentials and possibilities in heritage-focused practices and livelihoods to generate sustainable existential measures. It is a new political economy that enhances local solutions, or in other words, small-scale interventions that answer global challenges. This cultural political economy denotes access to network infrastructures, knowledge or institutional recognition that enables new qualities of sharing. A heritage discourse that stands grounded in the reflexive approach to the human condition necessitates targeted attention to deviance from or contradiction of the celebrated norm. What is left out or straightforwardly negated. Establishment of political positions as well as legal actions generate normativity by default, whereas culture is free and prone to alter dynamically. I am underscoring here a relativist approach to heritage on the notion of hybridity in this context. Tradition or heritage is perceived to be profound because it is associated with roots and the past, whereas hybridity or hybrid forms are considered to be superficial. But locally constructed realities or cultural dynamics in general are much more complex and punctuated with hybridity in a locally meaningful way.
Thank you, Kristin. Kristin, I think
I will, okay.
Yes, if you can just give your final summary, because we slowly have to move on to see to those practices in communities.
Right, and that's what I want to bring forward is to apprehend social environmental change from an inspirational point of view. So that would be another path for considering the ignored or latent affordability by broadening the ideational comprehension of the abstract descriptors of sustainability or resilience or rights. And therefore, let me conclude with a generative note and propose to search cultural sustainability as an act of resilience, bringing together community leaders, practitioners, and scholars for finding ways to exchange experience and establish partnerships through heritage-related networks. And resilience invokes the ability to recover from adversity or deformation, making conceptually an analogy with the ability of an ecosystem to return to its original state after being disturbed. fostering such connections in multiple arenas, employing relevant pools of knowledge and creating spaces to maintain them could nurture an existence with enhanced social and environmental balance. Such an approach to sustainability is grounded in a commitment to equity by supporting genuine dialogue. But it should be a dialogue simultaneously informed by reflexivity and dependence on education. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Kristin. This was very informative, and I think we are lucky that we can record what you just told us, so that each of us can return to this later and listen to it again. There is so much information in it. But thank you once again. I think we have to move on to our next point, and I would like to ask Aslak Holmberg to join us with the voice and video next. Aslak, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Great to see you there. I will put the next slide on view. And first of all, we have to thank Aslak for joining us very quickly to this program, because to a very last minute cancellation, our friend from Greenland, Kirstin Möller, fell ill and she wasn't able to tell us about ecological sustainability in Greenland, but instead, and nonetheless interesting, we are going to hear about ecological sustainability and knowledge of nature in the Sami area, told to us by Aslak Holmberg from the Sami Council, among other things. I think, Aslak, you could start telling a couple of words about where you are situated and what does Sami Council do in short.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for the invitation as a step-in participant here. So this will be completely improvised part of the program. But yeah, the topic is of course quite familiar for me. So yeah, to start with, I'm a vice president of the Sami Council, which is a non-governmental organization working in the whole area where Sami live. So that includes parts of Russia, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And we have member organizations from each of those countries. And we have 4 different units which run projects and participate in different kinds of processes. So we have the cultural unit and the Arctic and environmental unit, the human rights unit, and the EU unit. So I've been mostly working together with the Arctic and environment unit, and there we participate in different projects and processes, such as the Convention on Biological Diversity, to raise the issues of indigenous peoples in relation to customary use of nature and indigenous knowledge, and how that should be efficiently made into part of the decision-making processes, as well as research that is done on indigenous territories or areas.
Okay, so I think we have here a lot of that Kristin already told in terms of research, and you tell us now that through the Sami Council you already have a very strong hold on discussing these issues, also through policy making and taking those issues forward in a constructive manner. To take that to a bit more maybe everyday level, how would you shortly describe the role of ecological sustainability and the connection to living heritage in the way of life of Sami people?
Yeah, so I can give some examples. So, for example, I myself, I grew up fishing. Oh yeah, I don't think I actually in my introductions told you where am I from and where am I based. So
I can help you here a bit.
Yeah, yes. Oh, okay, yes, you have found the website of our Utsjoki tourism website. Yes, so this is the Atno River, or Teno, Tana in Norwegian. So I live next to that river, and yeah, I grew up fishing salmon there with my father. So, well, first of all, if we think about sustainability, then that is the very basis of our existence here. If we look at it historically, I mean, we wouldn't be here unless we were able to use these areas in a sustainable way. So, as a continuation of these old traditions, there are many practices still today that are practiced. For example, in the salmon fishing, ever since I was able to be on a boat, I've been going there with my father, and that has been a way for me to learn to know this area and to become more attached to it and respect it more. It's also time when you spend or a practice when you spend a lot of time together with other people, such as my father, who is an elderly person. So if we spend a number of hours on a boat or on the river bank fixing the nets and so on, so that's the time also for sharing experiences, learning about the histories. So it's often when we go to a certain place that kind of functions as a trigger for finding these teachings and stories that might not come if you're sitting in a living room. But when we're going around the nearby areas, then that's when you learn about how these areas were used and what has happened there. So through that, it's also important for the language learning. So through the practice, you also practice of fishing, you also learn Sami languages and the knowledge that is attached to the languages, such as in relation to weather and water and so on.
Yeah, that's so enthralling. And the landscapes are huge, overwhelming, even in pictures, and not to mention when you are there in Tunturi or on the hills in northern Lapland. Moving on in this, you already told to us about the work of Sami Council and about the different initiatives that you are working on there. Then you told about how you have grown into the sustainable ways of living that entwine together, living the livelihoods that based on nature and living with nature, and being active both in the more formal levels and in the everyday levels. What would you think that are or which topic would you bring up now as a next step, or something that you would focus interest regarding living heritage and ecological sustainability?
Yeah, so first of all, on a note on this 4 different levels of sustainability, I think all of them have to be included if anything is to be sustainable. So it has to be ecologically sustainable, socially, culturally, and economically sustainable in order for it to be sustainable. So it's good to look at it in a holistic way. Well, if we consider the traditional ways that we, the Sami people, use nature here, then I have to note that we are seeing some huge changes taking place in the environment. So that, of course, is directly reflected to our our livelihoods. For example, we have experienced a decline in the salmon stocks, and there has been a new invasive species coming to the river. Also, the seasons are changing, winters are changing. We're due to climate change, we're facing some rain during the winter season, which creates all kinds of difficulties for the reindeer herding, because the reindeer cannot access food if the pastures are frozen. So these are some examples I wanted to bring to take a view on what the situation is and what the future looks like. So I think this is something that we'll definitely have to put a lot of emphasis in the future on how do we adapt, because the nature is adapting, and our very basis of our livelihoods are changing. So if the Atlantic salmon is replaced by another species of salmon, then we'll have to learn how to live with that, how to make use of the new resources that we have. So I guess if I'm to highlight one thing, it is that we are in a learning process. Everyone, like the areas are changing, so we are all have to, in a place where we have to find ways to adapt and in a way change our culture to fit the new situation that we are living in.
Wow, those are extremely topical points, and I think we could discuss them a lot further, but I think we have to leave it to the workshops later on. But you brought up some very concrete actual topics that we are all facing. One thing that I suppose is not changing, though, and not the climate change is not affecting, is the polar night that we shortly discussed this morning when I called you, that it keeps on coming every year. And I guess it was during the weekend that it officially started, the polar night, when the sun is not rising above the horizon.
Yes, just a couple of days ago we said goodbye to the sun and look forward to seeing it again in the end of January, I believe.
Yeah. Well, good luck with all that. I might say I know the feeling, but I thank you for now this, Aslak, and thank you for hopping into our program so quickly on such quick notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we are moving to cultural sustainability. And I'm asking if our friend Ann Björk is online. And hello, Ann Björk. And we are moving on to talk about cultural sustainability and performing arts. And I think we start with talking again a bit about where we are now. We are in southern Norway, I suppose, with you, Ann Björk.
Yes, we are. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the good speeches until now, and I think it will be great further on. We are now in Norway and in Setesdal, which is in the middle of Norway, in a way, in the southern end of Norway, a valley called Setesdal.
Okay, tell us a bit about the project that you are working for, the Setesdal's Folk. We are talking about traditional music and dance, aren't we?
Yes, the folk music and dance in Setesdal was listed at the ISCH representative list in December 19. And it's a lot of very strong traditions in Norway. The reason why this tradition could be listed was because it's a concrete area, and it's possible to put a frame around the area in tradition, so it could be defined as an own identity. I'm a fiddle player myself, play the Hardanger fiddle, the national instrument of Norway, and did a PhD which was based on the tradition in Setesdal. My music analysis was on Andres Rystad, an excellent Hardanger fiddle master from Setesdal.
Okay.
And after I finished this PhD, I was in 2020, after the Setesdal tradition was listed, I was asked by the Agder County Municipality to do a research on the possibilities, expectations, the different networks, and that was connected to this status. And if there was any good argumentations for making a project. That was a huge learning for me. And it was also, it felt a good follower to my PhD. The Agder County Municipality decided to make a 3 years project called Setesdals Folk, which is my job today. So I have my office in Setesdal and try as good as I can to be as close as possible to the field, to the society, to understand the society as good as I can, as close as possible. And the main focus in my job is recruitment, because it's a small folk society, and the huge masters are all over 70 years old, and very few young people. So it was really necessary to put in focus on recruitment and to revitalize the society and try to build up to empowerment, to build energy into the society and proudness.
Yes. As we talked earlier about this Setesdal's tradition, the playing and dancing and singing, and about the project, I was amazed by your energy and your willingness really to learn to know the community there. And in this slide we have a breathtaking view to the Setesdal, what's called a valley, the Dal. And you told about how you had already done your PhD on the topic, and now that you started to work through this project to re-energizing kind of this tradition of music and dance. You say that you came across with the feeling that you had kind of like a need to re-understand a topic that you already know quite well. And among other things, you told me about this finding inside-out perspectives, and as you already mentioned, trying to get as close as possible to the realities. And maybe you would tell us a bit about your actions or day in, day out activities that you do, and about the building the trust in the Setesdal area.
I think this is a very important core. I experienced it myself, that I came in there and luckily got the job and was super inspired and made an organization map out of what I thought was the society was all about. Because I had my field work during my research time. But when I spent so much time up there that I do now, I had 1 year and I have 2 more years to go, I see that I had to re-understand. I had to make a new organization map, because there are resource persons that I didn't knew, because I was into the music field, and with such small societies, it's important to try to expand the groups that are involved in such a listing, and it's super important to build the bridges in communication, and the amount of communication between both the politicians and the people that work in the schools is very. We all work in ourselves, and it's the bridges are missing. So to understand better, and as Professor Kristin Kutma so gratefully said, to grasp it on a practical level and to understand the change and have an update on the change. It's very important. I think we all that have, we are lucky to be in our positions, and we are helpers for society. And I think we need to stress the inside out perspective, because we think we understand, or at least I thought I understood, but I really needed more time, more Monday and Tuesdays to just understand the daily life and not only Saturdays.
I think,
like
I will, in this point, I will change the slide, and I will shortly add a few words to this, because I really like this, what we came upon when we were talking earlier about this case example and your work through the Sätesdal's Fall project. And you told about this part from seeing the issue that we feel that there should be this musical revitalization around this Sätesdal tradition. And how we also talk then about it, how it doesn't happen on those Saturdays and Sundays and on the feasts, but it is something that is deeply entwined with the Mondays and Tuesdays of culture, so the everyday. And then we also talk about those concepts, and Kristin, as you mentioned, also those like finding the shared knowledge or shared understanding about concepts and what we think that they mean, and what values they hold and what ideas they hold. I think this, I'm afraid this might come a bit out of the bushes, but thinking that you know the area so well and you know the tradition so well, would you name a word, a term, a concept that you think would give us an example that you are finding ways to find the common understanding about with the community in Sätesdal? Is there such a word, a concept?
I think we just have to really be close to society and find the social meeting places and see, try to understand how they socialize, how they think and how they react, and especially how much time they need, because it's very easy to move too fast and have all the solutions, but I think small seeds can be planted, and then to watch the change or the growing process done by the society, because it is the society that knows how this should be defined, and I think language, use common terms. So what we do, we go into schools and invite them, train up the teachers, invite them to deep dive into building up their own identity. I work in 3 municipalities in Sätesdal, and also for them to have communications between the municipalities, folk music and dance, and just get the students to understand and feel that they are in a school in Sätesdal and not another place in the world. Why are we here? And hopefully that will end with an empowerment that the business will go better, will be stronger because of the identity. I think tourism, the tourist that goes to Sätesdal is because they want to see the old tradition that is there, and for me to try to be a good listener, I need I think trust is very important, and just give them the time they need, and just go into the basic the ground floor, and put the seeds, and just really clear out the contact persons in all networks and organization in local, regional, national, and international levels. I think in such networks, it's very easy to not communicate enough, and not and maybe go too fast. And so make sure that the society, the small societies that have been working for free all their lives, maybe can get paid, and inspire the young people to still want to live in Setesdal. Maybe a lot of like young people want to move there because they're building up their identity and their proudness of their identity.
Thank you, Ann-Björk. This again, as with Aslak previously, feels now like really like a iceberg, or tip of an iceberg, like where we are here. And again, a theme and an angle on sustainability that we will need to dive deeper then in the workshops. But thank you for now, and I'm really looking forward to hear more about your work later in the Living project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I think we are moving on then to the viewpoint of economic sustainability. I wonder if we have Eva Lemet here online.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. I'm waiting a second with my video is refreshing, and maybe I'm also seeing you soon, but at least I'm changing the slide. Yes, we have Eva Lemet from Creative Estonia today to tell us mostly about links between economic sustainability and the living heritage of crafts, but there are also other things brought up. And I put here on the opening slide illustrations of relating to traditional music in Estonia. There is the torupill, which is the Estonian back, how do you call it again? A bagpipe. And then I couldn't resist adding also my favorite Estonian band, the Puuluup, who uses the traditional hiiukannel in their music to make contemporary pop like the Trat Attack, and then new folk as does Puuluup. But Eva Lemet, maybe you would like to say a few words about yourself and Creative Estonia.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. My name is Eva Lemet. I'm a manager of Creative Estonia, and Creative Estonia is Creative Industries Development Organization in Estonia. We are operating already more than 10 years, and our main aim is to help creatives to be entrepreneurs. We are running several of entrepreneurship courses. And during these years, we have also many connections with rural areas, and especially there we have seen and work together with also companies who are based on cultural heritage. And I'm happy to share you some findings in my work.
All right. Let's start then. We start with something that is quite well known and popular among the eager knitters of this webinar too, the Haapsalu knitted lace. There's a few words that you would like to tell about this.
Yeah, in our findings in rural areas, working with local people who are able to starting their businesses. And we have seen that they very often are getting their ideas from traditional crafts. And this is one of good examples that this Haapsalu knitted lace is used as in haute couture by Kristiina Viirpalu, so that as a in business you always need to find your own niche, something what is different, something what is standing up from other products. And as we have this kind of too many products in the shops and everywhere, so that we definitely don't need anymore, and it's really hard to be visible and to make this marketing advantage. And I have seen that it's only one here presented, but there is several cases where designers will take this cultural heritage knowledge and skills and patterns and different technologies, and they are building the contemporary product. And here is one of the very good cases where Kristiina Viirpalu is world known. She is presenting several fashion weeks in New York and in London and in Paris, and her collections are very much needed and wanted, so that it's a good good case to present. And we always encourage craftsmen to design more their products and to make them more usable for nowadays. That this is one of our learnings.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the next slide and the next case is about this, that the interventions on feeding design and innovations regarding the traditions of crafts. And there is focus has been on Ida-Viru County. Apologizing for my pronunciation.
It's good. You pronounced very well. It's Ida-Viru, and it's eastern part of Estonia. And there we was working not Estonian national crafts, but in minorities. That this area we have mostly Russian-speaking population, and they are not only Russians, but there is around 40 different nations are living. They are Ukrainians, Belarusians, also Lithuanians, and many different nations from post-Soviet areas. And we had a project supported by British Council in Estonia, and it was aimed as this kind of making them more connected to Estonian society. But as the target group was craftsmen and not nationally this in Estonians, we worked with them and we raised their awareness about intangible cultural heritage, and we made them more proud the culture what they have and the skills and the crafts what they are doing. They mainly was only living with their crafts, and it was really hard for them to find the right selling places and to make better sales. So that we had workshops with them to how to tell stories, how to make photos, and how to upload them to the internet, and to build web pages and e-shops, and to be more visible in Estonian market and more understandable also to Estonians as clients. And this was very successful project. It was half-year project last year during the Corona time, and we was also a bit suffering to having online lectures. But as for this target group, it was also learning about digitalization, that how to learn in online, that for them it was first time in Zoom and in everywhere, so that it was also a learning point for them. And we ended this project with a pop-up shop in Tallinn, in Viru Keskus. It's a main shopping hall in Tallinn, and it was pop-up shop for 1 weekend, and it was really for them like some of them was first time in Tallinn, and in the main shopping hall it was like an export project for them, and we had very nice sales there, and also they was very proud to talk to Estonians, and what they learned that it's good to know Estonian language as a customer, as Estonians are coming asking you, you have to explain, and it's more connected and better connections if you are doing it them own language, and it encouraged them to learn more Estonian.
Also that, yes, yes.
It was integration project as well.
I see. I think we have a nice bridge to the next theme here. This Ida-Viru project illustrate that these representatives of these minorities traveled finally to Tallinn. But with the case of this Sibula tee, the onion route, there is the other way round how this goes, that people are invited to the shores of the Lake Babes to see living heritage there. There is a screen capture from the Onion Route website there showing that there are several different businesses and small enterprises involved, including also craft entrepreneurs, but others. And this, when has this started, and is this still an ongoing project?
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's like a program or tourism activity, and they have in total 31 members on this Onion Road. And what is very good connections to creative industries that they are offering many services to tourists, and these services are based on cultural activities. They having ceramic courses and also some crafts workshops, but also very much focusing on local cooking habits, and this traditional cooking is one of the main activities. Also, there is some museums connected to this road, and the galleries as art galleries and photography galleries, and also having photography classes and some workshops there. And it's really a nice program that they started to build this community on this area, and now they are very strong, and they having even in the autumn they always have this onion festival as this local it's intangible heritage that they are growing onions a lot, and there are special this kind of markets there when onions are ready, and they are inviting, and people all around Estonia is trying to this Peipsi lake and to buy onions, and they have an onion festival.
That sounds terrific. I really should go there because I happen to be an onion lover, and I love all the different forms that we have onions in. I think we have to rush on our schedule now, Eva. Thank you so much for these insights about the connection between economics and living heritage.
Thank you.
We are dashing on to social sustainability with Almudena from Poland.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent.
Hello.
Thank you. And you are invited here from the National Institute of Cultural Heritage in Poland. You have the headquarters in Warsaw, and then you have 17 branches in all the voivodeships in Poland.
Yes, we have 17 regions in Poland, bigger regions, and then in every, let's say, capital of the region, we have small group of people, like 3, 4 maybe, that are taking care of the heritage in that space, let's say, because we are not only working with intangible heritage, but also with monuments protection, different things, in fact.
Yeah.
So we are kind of within this whole institution, we're a small team, quite, I would say. There's like 9 of us, mostly, and the whole team of everybody in the institution is like around 200 people. So we're 9 out of 200.
Yes. So 9 is working on intangible cultural heritage.
Yes.
Yes, but today you are here telling to us your viewpoints about social sustainability with special focus on education. And you have given this a great thought in a way that you came up with this suggestion of education on, within, and from living heritage.
Yes, because I thought how you would in fact define this education on living heritage, and in fact it has so many definitions, so many angles to tackle that I think that I thought that maybe I would start with this concept of living on, education on, but then think of that in fact we should also learn from education within the living heritage and take it from the bearers of living heritage and put in some other areas too. So 3 concepts in fact are here.
Well, let's start with education on living heritage.
Well, first thing several different ideas came to my mind when I thought about education on living heritage, and the first thing was theorizing. This is something that we do here a little bit. Thinking about concepts, trying to interpret them. And as far as in Poland, for example, we can say that, it is much, let's say, covered, this part of education, in the sense that, for example, we have a lot of academics or some centers in the universities that deal with it as a theory. So for example, there are like 2 academic centers. There are two cities in Poland, Poznań and Lublin, where they really for many years they organized some conferences on the topic, and they really tackle this theory on intangible heritage a lot. So it is covered, let's say, this academic sphere, but then it is also I think the very great actors within this are also culture centers, which are maybe less seen in this when we think about academic world, but they also organize a lot of events. The most important in those events is for me that they you can meet very different people from different backgrounds, not only academics, but the practitioners themselves. So for example, there is one conference or one congress organized each year by one of the centers. I'm talking about a big center for one region. Maybe some people will be here or are here in this workshop too. It is called Sokół and the Falcon, and it's in the south of Poland. And every year they organize a big congress when they invite academics, but also the practitioners. And they have, for example, panel discussion on different things connected with intangible heritage. So they can exchange their thoughts. So it's not only academics or not only practitioner thing, but a mixture of all these thoughts. And this is fantastic for me. This really gives this circle. So it's not only this, academic sphere, for example. So culture centers are really something I think important actor in this field. Of course, there are also museums that tackle this thing. For example, in Krakow, and now a new, let's say, department renamed, in fact, itself. It was called another way, but it's a museum of the history of Krakow. And they now open up this department, which is called the Center for the Interpretation of Intangible Cultural Heritage. So they renamed themselves in a way that will put more stress to this intangible sphere. And they also organize a lot of meetings on this, let's say, theory. So in fact, I think that we have, there's a huge variety of actors on this arena of theory of intangible heritage, and this education on in this let's say direction is quite well covered.
Yeah.
But it's not the only thing, of course. This is just this theorizing, which is not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I put here different things, a little bit maybe close to theorizing, but because it's not yet something really practical. It's the word I will use, consulting. This is, for example, what we do in my institution, in our team, that this is also a kind of education on living heritage, because to us, a lot of people are coming asking questions, we have this and this. Is it intangible heritage? What is it, in fact, intangible heritage or living heritage? Can you explain us this? So what we do here, it's also a kind of, explaining things. We use a little bit of theory, but also show a little more practical point. Like, for example, some groups, some bearers of intangible heritage want to be included in the inventory on the national level, inventory of intangible heritage, and we are somehow managing it. So we're explaining what to do to be there, in fact. And this is also some kind of education on, because sometimes we're, sharing things that maybe they don't know, and vice versa, of course.
Yeah,
so
I see.
This is also a part of education, I think.
Of course. But I think we move on to the education within living heritage.
Yes, here I will just talk about two things before really get into this within thing.
Okay.
That there are like two other things that we can talk about. That there's also like the education that involves presenting your own heritage to others. It is not yet within the community, but to everybody interested. Okay, so this is, for example, what here in this picture we can see. There is an association that is they're involved in weaving. They're very much they started as a hobby, but in fact later they really got in love in it so much that it started to be their daily life thing, and in fact they became kind of the bearers of this tradition, and they were organizing workshops with the masters in art, let's say, of weaving. So they were exchanging the knowledge. So this is like a meeting with the bearers and other people who are not yet the bearers of this tradition, but they want to learn something. So this is also a kind of education we are talking about. Yeah. So this is also this is not yet within, but something very close to it. So this is also something that I wanted to mention during this,
yeah, I see.
And then we can go now to this within section. Okay. My point here is that when we talk about sustainable education, I have this idea that sustainable education is taking from, in fact, taking from living heritage, in fact, and put it into the, let's say, formal or non-formal area of education, and use the techniques or the methods that are used or were used once upon a time when people wanted to pass on their knowledge to the others. So when this, let's say, sector of living heritage, we have this most common methods. I just put here some of them. One is I think the most known is the mentor and mentee method, which is the way of learning and teaching. It's not exactly a teacher-student method, because it's a little bit about something else. It is about the student, let's say, or the learner watches the master, the crafted of some art, the master of some art, and like, for example, sometimes does the same thing, tries to imitate him or her. Yeah. At some point, sometimes it's just a person that helps the master, and that's why that's why little by that's the way that the person learns, and little by little, you know, this knowledge comes to the learner by many meetings with this person and being with them on a daily basis, and not in a classroom, but in another surrounding. So this mentor-mentee, it's like more like tutoring, coaching thing, maybe like something like that. This something quite known maybe in non-formal education, but not so used so far. And let's say, I mean, Poland, because I don't have other experiences here, but and let's say school, formal education in school, it's not so yet used so far. It's rather this teacher-centered education. So I would really like to, you know, this approach to be more put it into school areas.
Is this something that directly refers to the third topic, the learning from living heritage then?
Yeah. So these were, like, I just put it here, some methods that are popular in this living heritage process of education, like games and plays and storytelling, which is like I think one of the most extraordinary things that you may learn from, in fact, because you don't even know that you're learning from. And that it's not studying, you don't feel it as a studying. So this is one of my favorite method of learning. And also peer education. And I don't only mean education between kids, for example, like for example, in a, let's say, traditional family where we had many kids, they formed a kind of little society within the family, and they learn from each other. But also in some areas, in some spheres of living heritage, like more, let's say, ritual or performances sphere, there is also a group of peers, for example, adolescents, that perform something, especially when we talk about, let's say, winter festivals and some rites, some rituals that were performed mostly by people not kids, but not adult as well. So another, let's say, a group that also learn from one another, not from somebody older, but in fact from one another. So this peer education thing was very, and still is very popular as a kind of method in living heritage. This was short, and then I go to this education from, or learning from, because my point here was that we, in fact, sometimes we don't know even, while using kind of method, that first of all, that this is a method and not just a random thing. And then another thing that is in fact, when we go into the roots deep, then we'll find the source in living heritage, in fact. So everything that we do now here, and we will do later in the workshop time, like something obvious as a group work, in fact, is not so obvious if we talk about education at school. Sometimes, there are classes which, in fact, concentrate on this group work thing, but generally it is like, you're sitting in a class and listening to a teacher, a group of students listening to a teacher. You don't work as a group so much. So this is something, in fact, obvious in non-formal education, but not in formal one. This is something that in fact was invited as a method in the living heritage area. Another thing that I find interesting here, I talked about storytelling as a method. Here, for example, what we could use, and it's used now on as a method for language acquisition. And I'm talking about acquisition, not studying, because again, this method doesn't feel like studying. In fact, you're acquiring it. So, for example, very strong methods that are using this technique of storytelling is here's storytelling. I should put story listening, because one of the methods is story listening, and it is about the tutor tells a story. Here, there's an example in a picture where you have a story told to the kids. And they're just listening. They don't interfere. They don't tell their own story. They're not asked questions. If they feel they can answer, they can talk, but generally they're just listening to the story. And somebody who's telling the story uses everything that he or she can. So like the body, the facial expression, and sometimes he or she draws on the board, and sometimes writes, but it's not very common. Mostly the drawing is the thing. So the kid like acquires it, a lot of input and doesn't have to talk. Late and little by little, then this person feels like talking, and then it talks. And there's another method, a little bit similar, but it's about acquiring language through reading, listening, and storytelling. And here is a more active part of the student, where you really have to talk, say something, tell a story. It's mostly based on fairy tales, and in fact things that if we talk about living heritage are very common in this storytelling process. So you're telling mostly like bedtime stories, these things you're learning, and you have to like create your own, and you say it in your own
story in a way.
So this is a method. Maybe for some of you, it might be something obvious, but when I'm really thinking about this, that maybe when we talk about these methods, we're very much forgetting when it comes from, that it's like 1,000 years long, sometimes tradition. And it's still very attached to living heritage nowadays, because there are still communities that really use this technique as a knowledge transmission. And one thing that I wanted to also say about the method, that something also obvious, like for example here, we in some workshops or other meetings, we have like the need for that all the participants will say something to us. We want to have their opinion. This is not also something very well known in, let's say, ordinary school. Okay, there's also this teacher-centered education, when you can receive an opinion from a teacher, but not exactly from your classmates. Okay, so it's not so common. And here it is interesting, because you're also by adapting this method to school, you're also learning that you have to respect the opinion of others, something like that, through this small, in fact, technique, that it's not only the teacher who can tell you what's right, what's wrong, that the opinion of others also important. So I think it's also, at least in Poland, I think we have a big need to put it into the classroom.
Okay, let's move on, and maybe you can wrap this all up, and I'll put the last slide on here. Okay. What was your initial idea with this one?
Yeah, just to sum up, my idea was that we have to, because those examples here, those methods that I mentioned, are just few of thousands that exist within the living heritage. We can pick from them. There is a big variety of them, and we can just, my idea, my desire, in fact, is to pick from them and use it, put it into the classroom, and just feel free to to make them happen, because in fact they can make the education be more sustainable. And by sustainable, what I mean is to be that me as, let's say, a learner notices the people around myself that are also learning, noticing people in the process, that it's not only myself that is learning, there are other people, and some kind of respect to the community that surrounds me. So for example, my learning is not only for myself, but I'm also a part of the community, and maybe my learning will serve the community. So I might be of a help to the community, and that's why I'm learning something. This kind of mindset, I think, it would be good to work on. So not to be so egoistic, So this is more sustainable for me.
Yes, I especially paid attention when you said that there can be these very old storylines going on, or methods that are used for thousands of years, and somehow because of the modern ways and post-modern ways of life, we tend to forget that we have these ancient methods of learning and passing on knowledge and sharing experience and telling stories deeply are rooted or in the roots of our activities. And with these words, I think I have to thank you, Almudena. And it has been very informative, and you have really wrapped a lot into such few minutes, and thank you a lot for this. And again, I'm happy that we are recording this so we can all return to these afterwards. Thank you for
very
now.
much, yes. I wanted to say about bagpipes, but it's not time already. I'm out of
Okay,
time.
we have to talk about bagpipes
Yeah.
later.
Yes,
More
it will be
later
later.
about those
Okay.
then. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent. I will leave this image here still for a while because I think it leaves such a good vibe, and also in a way sums up a lot about what we have heard now during the 1 hour and 40 minutes that we have already spent in this opening webinar. Now it is going to be time for the break, and as I'm calling Lena to join the board with me. She's
I'm on
hearing me.
board.
Yes, great to see and hear you. It's funny because we are in the same room, but there are 2 doors between us so that we don't now see or hear each other directly.
Excellent discussion, such interesting input. So I'm really sure that this has provided great input for all of the workshops. So, but we're now going to go into a break. So if you haven't yet signed in for the workshops, they will start in, how long break are we going to have, Elisa, in 5 or 10 minutes or 10 minutes? Let's have a break of 10 minutes, and after that we will put you all into nice small groups. You will meet new people, get to share your experiences and learn from each other. So if you have the possibility, stay tuned and we will put everyone into those small groups. But let's have a break now for 10 minutes. So we will come back at 15:40 or 14:40, depends on your time. You may even be further away, but for those who need to leave for other duties, thank you so much for joining us, and for the rest of you, warm welcome to the workshops. That will be the interesting interactive part now for this session.